everybody, it's Dana and welcome back to my YouTube channel and blog. Today I am using the new Atelier inks from Ink on 3. These are watercolor fusion inks and they're absolutely fantastic to play with. I'm so glad you are joining me on another day of my holiday card series. So let's go ahead and get started. I have stamped out the Oh Dear stamp again from Ink on 3 onto some Canson watercolor paper. I do like to tape down my panels anytime I'm watercoloring, and this is just like a backer board, and I'm using my purple tape to tape this down. Now the reason I like to tape my panels down is so that I do not get a lot of warping when I am watercoloring. A lot of the times most of my projects that I'm watercoloring are going to be put on cards, so I like to make sure that they kind of stay as flat as possible. Now, since I have that down, I did want to tell you that I stamped this out in the Fadeout ink from Ink on 3 because I want to do a little bit of no line watercoloring. Okay, so let's get started. The first color I'm using in this line of inks, and this is a specialty ink. This is called Twiggy Brown. It's water reactive, it's acid free, and it's archival. I also have a little cup of clean water, and I'm also going to be using a paintbrush. I prefer to use a paintbrush compared to a watercolor brush when I watercolor. All I'm going to do is take the cap off. I'm going to slide this over so you guys can kind of see the ink pad and the image, and I also have a rag. I've wet my paintbrush and now I'm coming right in and starting my painting. Now, the one thing I do want to show you on this is I like to pull the color to the edge of my line when I'm using the fade out ink. There's two ways to do this. A lot of people say they might struggle with no line watercoloring, but it's really easy with the fade out ink. You can go directly to the line and just touch it with your ink, and you will see that the line will turn the color of the ink that you're using. So you can see that's a super easy way to watercolor. If you wanted to, you can just push the color to the line until it grabs hold of the color, and then you can pull that color out from the line. All right, I am wetting down my paper and I'm just bringing in small amounts of color. And I'm able to get a really nice gradient on this. Because the ink is allowing me to build up that color. Now on this side, I'm going to show you that I'm just going directly to the line and painting over the line. As you can see, that fade out ink is grabbing a hold of that color, and I'm just pulling the color onto the line. So either way you want to do it, it's going to come out just fine. Now I have a little bit of water, and I'm tapping back and forth between the ink and the water that's sitting off to the side. And I'm able to pull a lot of that color directly into that image. As you can see right here on the top, I had just pushed that color right up to that line, and then I just went back and forth with my paintbrush. And you can see that that fade out ink is actually fading into the color I'm using. I'll grab a little bit more water and start dragging that color. Now, what's so awesome about this new ink is that you don't need a lot and you're able to get a great gradient when you're coloring. A lot of the times you might feel like you have to build up your colors. With this ink, it stays wet longer in my opinion, and it allows me to graduate those colors from like darker to softer by just adding more water or less water. I'm going to come right underneath here, and you're going to see I'm pushing that color to the line, just kind of going right beneath the line, and then I push the color to the line, and then you can see that that fade out ink grabs that beautiful color. So now I can come back in, and another thing that's great about this ink is I'm able to add more or less water to get the intensity that I want, but I'm also able to pull that color and fade it out to a nice light shade. Another great thing about this ink is it stays vibrant. Sometimes if we're using distress inks, the color will fade back some and it won't stay as bright. This ink stays bright. So what I went ahead and did is I sped up the coloring here, because this probably took me about 40 minutes or so to color. But I wanted to leave some of this in so you can see how easy it is to work with this new ink. Now Floret has about 8 colors out and they're on pre-order right now. So the sooner that you pre-order, the sooner you're going to get your new ink. I'll come back in. As you can see, I get a very light color in the deer's face, and it's the same ink. I have not changed inks, you guys. This is the same exact ink that I use beneath his little chin part. I'm really able to get really soft color blends with this ink, and I don't have to have a whole bunch of colors to make this work. All right, I'm going to go ahead and fill in his little nose. And in this part of the video, I did speed it up. Again, this took me about 40 minutes or so to color. So I just wanted to kind of show you the basic of how this ink works. I'm coming in right from the ink pad. I don't have to smush this off onto the side or onto an acrylic mat or something. This mat here is the Waffle Flower mixed media or watercolor mat, which I absolutely love. And I don't even have to smush the color down on that. I can take it directly from the ink pad and bring it right to my project. And I want to leave this part in because when I'm watercoloring, I do have a tendency to flip and rotate my images. The next color I'm coming in with is Goddess Green. And I'm going to quickly show you how to use this ink on the leaves. Okay, I wanted to slow this back down to normal speed so you can see how easy this is. I'm just bringing in that color the same way I did when I started the deer and pulling that color with just a little bit of water, pulling it through the rest of the leaf. Then I'll come into the other side of that leaf and pull the color back across. And you can see I'm getting a gorgeous leaf here. Again, minimum work, really not a lot of work on this, you guys. And then I can come in, paint directly on that line if I want to, and just pull that ink through. And look how gorgeous that is. These inks make it so easy to no line watercolor. All right, I went ahead and started to speed this back up, but I just wanted to show you guys, especially like on those little detailed bits of an image, that you can do the no line watercoloring with this ink. This ink to me has probably been one of the easiest inks I've ever played with. And I would tell you, as soon as I got them in the mail and I was actually making this card, I was recording it. When I was done, I was so impressed that I immediately had to call Floret and just tell her that I think these inks are magnificent. They're absolutely magnificent for people who might be a little bit nervous about watercoloring. All right. Now, since I have that done, I'm going to come in. I believe this color is called Blackout, but I'll make sure to link all of the products below. And I'm going to do his eyes. And you can see, again, it's not taking me a lot of effort to bring this image together. Now I'm going to go back up and do his antlers. I am using the same Twiggy brown. This is the same exact color that I colored the deer with, and I'm going to do his antlers. So again, I'm lightly going around with that paintbrush, pulling just a little bit of color. And my brush in this part is a little bit damper, as you can see, because I'm getting a lot of dark color, and that's exactly what I wanted. I needed to have his antlers a little bit darker than his body. This next gorgeous red color is called Marilyn Red. Okay, so again, I wanted to slow this down so you guys can see how easy this is. I'm coming in with that damp brush, just pulling that color out to that line, dabbing back into the ink, and pulling that color over to the line. Again, it turned that gray green line from the fade out ink into the color that you're using. And look how beautiful this is. It's super, super easy to do. And I really don't think you will have to worry about being so scared of watercoloring. Now, Florette does have a video up where she turns a pumpkin from purple to orange, and I will make sure to link her video so you can see how magical these inks are. They are hands down one of my favorite inks. All right, so I'm gonna deepen up that color right in the center of my flower. Again, just tapping right on that pad and pulling that color in. Now again, if you want to have darker bits to this, you can let this dry and then come back in with another coat. Or if you wanted to, you can add some color pencil. I usually have a tendency to add some color pencils when I'm watercoloring. When all of my watercoloring is complete, then I'll come back in with the color pencil. But you can totally do this and build up your layers. Again, you're not going to lose any of the vibrancy of these inks. They don't fade back like normal watercoloring would. They stay vibrant. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and speed this back up, and you can see again how easy it is. I'm just pulling that color with some water. I'm getting a very light color pink here, and then I'm going to go in and fill in the rest. Now, obviously, if I wanted this video to be like over 40 minutes long, I would have showed you step by step with this, but I wanted to keep this video like an introduction, because I am going to do one a little bit later after my card series that's not sped up, so you can really see the colors. Again, I'm just going to fill in the rest of the red areas, and then I'll move into my next color. Okay, so all my little red bits are done. Now I'm going to come right back in with that Twiggy brown and fill in some of the areas of his ear that I need, or the top of his head that's right underneath the greenery. Just kind of fill that section in. And again, everything was done as far as the brown was concerned was from that one color of ink. Next, I did dab down the Marilyn red onto my mat, and I added a lot of water so I can get a nice soft pink look for the middle of his ears. So you can see how vibrant the flowers are, and then how soft I can get that pink to go into the center of his ears. Lastly, I'll come back in with that Blackout and go ahead and fill in the areas of his eyes. Just kind of putting that down, and then I'll go ahead and pull some of that color and then lighten it up with some water. And look how gorgeous this is. Absolutely beautiful, and such an easy image to watercolor or color. All right, now since I have that done, I am going to go back in and add a little bit more of the green. Again, remember I said you can build up your colors on this. So I'm just going to go in and darken those up just a little bit, just so I can kind of see my petal areas a little bit more defined. Okay, to finish this up, I'm going right back to that Twiggy brown, and I'm going to just draw in the stem parts of my little berries. And then this watercoloring is going to be complete. But you can see I only used 3 colors on this card. And again, you can darken this up more if you want to. You can add more layers, but I'll be in more depth a little bit later in another video. All right, now since this is all dried, I'm going to grab the matching Oh Dear die, and I'm going to place that right around this image. And look how gorgeous that deer is. Oh, it's so pretty. I'm going to line that up, and I'm just going to use my purple tape to hold this in place, because obviously I've watercolored this now. I do not want this to be a train wreck if I mess up and don't get these dies in place. I'm going to grab 2 more pieces just for safety measures, and then I can go ahead and run this through my die cut machining. All right, that looks good. Everything's in place, and I can go ahead and cut it and set it aside. Next, I'm going to come in, and I want to do a background on this. So I grabbed back out that Marilyn red, and I have another piece of Canson watercolor, and I also have a makeup brush. I love blending with these kinds of brushes because they just make blending so much easier. I'm just going to put down a scratch piece of paper, and I'm going to lightly start blending on this color. Now again, I'm just pulling a little bit of that color from the pad. I'm just pouncing on it and bringing it over. And I would say that this ink goes on watercolor paper beautifully. It doesn't, you know, watercolor paper has texture to it. So sometimes you might get like a lot of skipping because of the texture of the paper, but these inks flow over it so gorgeous. And again, I'm not going to lose that vibrancy of this red when this is dry. Again, usually if you're doing watercolors, a lot of the watercolors are going to dry back and they're going to kind of fade out on us. That's not going to happen with these inks. I'm just going around the edges because I do want to leave a highlight area right in the middle to have my deer sit on top of. So it kind of will draw the eye right towards my deer. I'm going to lightly keep going around just until I know I have a good coverage on this. Again, I'm not using a lot of ink. As you can see, I'm just tapping and pulling that color in. Once I have it all the way around and kind of symmetrical in the center, I'm going to grab my deer and I'm going to pop them up and see how much more I need to cover up. So right down here on this right bottom corner, I want to bring that color up a little bit more. Now, if I want this color to be super, super red, I would just continuously blend, but I kind of want this to be a softer red. I don't want it to be too harsh. I'll bring back in my deer, and I think I like how that looks. So I'll go ahead and close up my ink. Now, I do want to add a little bit of visual entrance to this, so I'm going to grab my brush, and I'm going to dip it right in my water, and I'm just going to tap off some water. Now, as I told you earlier, that this ink is water reactive. So I'm going to be able to have those nice little water speckles right onto this panel. And all I do is I just take my rag and dab that up, and then I get that really beautiful, it could possibly be a little bit of snow marks in the background. All right, now I'm going to bring back in my deer, make sure everything looks good. And I'm going to go ahead and start working on the base of my card. So I have my EK Success tool here, and I'm going to score right at 4 1/4. So I'm making a A2 card. I'll fold that over, and then I'll just go ahead and crease it down. Now, I did not trim down this panel because I want this panel to go all the way across. I'm not worried about having a white border this time. I just want that red to be all the way from edge to edge on this card. Now, my deer is going to look cute, but I do need to add a sentiment before I start putting this card together, because I am going to pop up that deer, and I want to make sure that I have my sentiment on there. Now, I can go ahead and glue this backing to my card panel. So I'm using my ATG gun for this. Now, one thing I have been doing, even though I love this gun, sometimes I might need wiggle room. So when I need wiggle room, I also grab myself my Hero Arts or my Gina K or my Lawn Fawn glue. Those are the little glues just in the little tubes. And I place this down over the adhesive. And this is just going to help me have a little bit of wiggle room when I need to have the card panel go edge to edge on my card. So I have that on there. Now I can bring in my card panel, and with having that liquid adhesive on the back with the glue, it gives me some time to wiggle that into place before I press down. And I can go ahead and run my fingers over that. And that's going to just give me really good adhesiveness when I don't want that panel to rise up, because remember, it is watercolor paper and it had a little bit of a bow to it or a little bit of warping. So now I know when I send this in the mail, it's going to lay flat. I went ahead and grabbed that one of the sentiments also from the Oh Dear stamp set, and I'm going to bring this and place it into my Misty. I'll place down my magnets, make sure I get everything lined up the way I want it, and then I can go ahead and stamp the sentiment. Now the sentiment on this, I was thinking about doing it in brown, but then I was like, no, I need to have it in black. Excuse my curly mess right there. I had to get on top of this card and really be over it, so I knew I had everything lined up. Now I'm using some black ink from Ink on 3, and I'll go ahead and tap that down and press down my sentiment. Now I did end up stamping this twice because I felt like I need that to be just a tad bit darker. I don't want it to compete with the cute little deer, but I did want to have it just a little bit darker, and I'll press that down again. All right, that looks perfect, and now we can go ahead and finish building up the card. Now, once my deer was in place, I thought, yeah, I like that black there. All right, so I do want to pop up my deer, and that was one of the reasons I needed to go ahead and stamp the sentiment first, because once my deer was on there, I was not going to be able to stamp because of the height of the deer. I just grabbed some foam dots, put them on the back, and I'm also going to do the same exact thing that I did for the backing. I'm going to put a little bit of glue right down on those adhesive dots, just to make sure that I have a tad bit of wiggle room when I place this deer on this panel. I mean, we just don't want to mess it up at this point. So I'll place him down, make sure I can kind of like slide him into place, and then I'll press. Now I don't want anything really to compete with this because I love the style of this card, very clean and simple. But I did end up grabbing just some glossy dots, and these are from Pink on Main. And again, I used clear on this because I did not want anything to compete with this beautiful watercolor deer. So I like to use odd numbers anytime I'm doing these kind of panels. So I'm just grabbing some larger ones, some smaller ones, and just kind of spreading them out around the deer. But again, these are not going to compete with the gorgeous background or with the style of the card. All right, everybody, that is the card for today. Make sure to swing by the blog, as I'll have an additional design over there, another card for you guys to see, and I'll see you guys in another video soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.